Good evening again. Welcome to our webinar session this evening. Really glad that you're making the time to join us. Just a reminder, as you enter, to please mute yourself. We are in meeting mode. And on behalf of the Northern Virginia Family Network, I welcome you to this session. Schools Respond, Teen and Substance Abuse Updates from our Northern Virginia schools. I am Kelly Henderson. I'm with Formed Families Forward, and I am a co-chair of the Northern Virginia Family Network, along with Rebecca Keesley, who is one of our co-facilitators this evening. We are recording this Zoom webinar, and it will be available recorded after the fact. Our plan is to have a Spanish captioned version of this available later this week. We do not have an interpreter this evening, but we will have a Spanish captioned version by the end of the week. You can find that on formedfamiliesforward.org. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we introduce our esteemed panel of presenters. This is being recorded. You can view it later. And again, we will have those Spanish captions available by the end of the week. The chat box is being seen by us hosts. So please use the chat box to add your questions while the live discussion is going on. We will group those questions, and our intent is that by 8 o'clock, we will be able to include your questions from the audience as the evening goes on. So thank you for indulging us and using the chat box. We do expect a very large group, so we do want you to use the chat box to include your questions or comments. We are also live streaming this on Facebook Live. So right now, at this time, the chat feature is available. The question and answer feature is available in Facebook Live, and a colleague from NAMI of Northern Virginia is monitoring that. So again, just keep, if you are joining us by Facebook Live, go ahead and use that feature, the question and answer feature in Facebook Live, and we will try to address your questions. So I just want to take a moment to talk a little bit about our network, the Northern Virginia Family Network. We are an informal but mighty group of nonprofit organizations that work with families, children, youth who are impacted by disability.
Kelly, I think you're on muted.
Apologies. So I'm not sure how much of that you heard or didn't hear, but we are welcoming you on behalf of Northern Virginia Family. Family serving and good. Okay. Family serving organizations that are working with families, youth, and children who are impacted by disabilities and mental health conditions. We do our work through quarterly meetings, and we have several products that we can share with you. They are available on our website, NVFN. There we go. And our members of our mighty band of organizations include these on the screen. I believe that Fairfax County SEPTA is amongst us this evening. I will put their information in the chat box, but if you're there and want to come on camera, go ahead and wave. Fairfax County SEPTA. And any other Northern Virginia Family Network member that's here, feel free to take yourself off camera and give us a wave, or put your information in the chat box, and I will make sure that everyone gets that. But that gives you a sense, I think, of who we are. If you're a organization out there that's serving families and would be interested in joining us, certainly let us know that as well. We welcome new members anytime. Those are the fact sheets that I mentioned. Those are great for professionals and for families. And again, our email address is NVFN network@gmail.com, and you can use that anytime to reach us. So without any further ado, again, I'm Kelly Henderson with Formed Families Forward. I'm going to stop talking and have Nina and Rebecca, our hosts for the evening, take on over. Please use that chat box if you have any technical issues or questions or comments for the panelists. Thank you. And again, thank you to our panelists for joining us.
Good evening. I wanted to welcome everyone here, both our panelists and our guests and my fellow hosts. I'm Nina Manganeris. I am the Deputy Director of Formed Families Forward. We are a family-led nonprofit, and we support families, foster, adoptive, and kinship care families who are raising children with special needs and the professionals who support them. I could spend a lot of time telling you about all the wonderful things we do, but we to keep it short and sweet, but we have a variety of educational and resource materials on our website. So I encourage you to check it out. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Rebecca.
Good evening. Thank you all for joining us today. My name is Rebecca Kiesling, and I'm the Executive Director of NAMI Northern Virginia. NAMI is the National Alliance on Mental Illness, the nation's largest grassroots mental health organization. NAMI provides free advocacy, education, support, and public awareness so that all individuals and families affected by mental illness can build better lives. NAMI Northern Virginia is a NAMI affiliate, serving over 2.4 million people in the Northern Virginia area. NAMI's programs can help you better understand yours or a loved one's mental health condition. All of our programs are free, confidential, and peer-led. We're an organization of peers and families. We understand because we've been there too. Our mission is to serve Northern Virginia individuals, family members, and friends affected by mental health challenges through awareness, education, support, advocacy, and collaboration with our wonderful community partners. Right now, we are going to ask each of our panelists to say their name, position, school division.
I guess I'll be the first out the gate. My name is Blaise Carland. My title is Student Assistant Specialist, and I'm with Loudoun County Public Schools.
Good evening. My name is Stefan Mascoll. I am the coordinator of the Student Safety and Wellness Office for Fairfax County Public Schools.
Hi, my name is Megan Marshall, and I'm a Student Assistant Specialist with Loudoun County Public Schools.
Good evening. I'm Rebecca Sharp. I am the Executive Director of Special Services in Falls Church City Public Schools.
And I'm Jenny Sexton, one of the substance abuse counselors with Arlington County Public Schools.
I'm Victor Martin. I'm the Executive Director of Student Support Teams for Alexandria City Public Schools.
I'm Ruthy Marcado, Substance Abuse Specialist with Alexandria City Public Schools.
Hi, I'm Julie Crawford. I'm the Director of Student Health and Wellness in Prince William County Schools, and I will introduce my colleague, Mallory McKnight, who is hoping to join us. She is traveling to a conference and is a little delayed. Mallory is our awesome substance abuse prevention specialist. Thank you.
Thank you. Did we get everyone? Yes, and Julie, thanks for introducing Mallory. So as you can see, we have panelists here from all of our 6 Northern Virginia school districts, and we are going to do a series of targeted questions and give the panelists an opportunity to respond, hear what's going on, what the current issues are, what some trends are. And then towards the end, around 8 o'clock, we are going to have an opportunity to answer the questions that were submitted through the chat, and then we'll do a wrap up. Okay, obviously we are limited for time. We're not going to be able to cover everything, but hopefully we can give you a sense of and an idea about what's going on with the school systems locally. All right, we're going to start with Stefan. If you could just give us a general overview on substance abuse, what's going on with adolescents generally, and maybe include if you see some trends or particular substances that are being used.
Sure. Well, thank you so very much for having the time to share this information with you. The information that you're going to see shortly on your screen is taken from our Fairfax County Youth Survey. It is an annual anonymous survey that we administer to students in 8th, 10th, and 12th grade. They have the opportunity to provide us with data on a variety of different behaviors, substance use being one of them. And if you look at this information and you look at these graphs, what you'll see on the x-axis, you'll see the percent, and then on the y-axis, you'll see the percentage, and then on the x-axis below there, you'll see the years. And overall, between 2015 and 2021, you will see a steady decrease in students' involvement in the past month with a variety of different substances. That orange line there represents marijuana use. The light green line represents painkillers used outside of a doctor's recommendation. That yellow line represents inhalant use, such as glue, aerosol, things of that nature. And then you'll also see that heroin line all the way there at the bottom. And the good news is, as you look at these percentages, we can tell you that the vast majority of students in Fairfax County are making safe decisions every single day when it comes to substance use, right? Those substances that that students tend to use more often, they do include marijuana, alcohol, and prescription pain medicine outside of a doctor's recommendation. The one substance here that you do not see is alcohol, and that's because it's found somewhere else in the Fairfax County Youth Survey data. But I can tell you that this past year, approximately 10% of students had used alcohol within the last 30 days. So that is a pretty high level overview of the substances that our students are using and in the capacity in which they're using them.
This is great information that I think really sends, it starts us home and starts us on this discussion.
So in addition to, I'm sorry.
No, keep going. I'm sorry. I thought.
No, you're fine. In addition to the Fairfax County Youth Survey data, we also have substance abuse prevention specialists based in each one of our high schools, and I'm sure I'll have time to speak about that program later on. But the chart that you're seeing here will inform you on what substances are students being referred to our school-based specialist most often for, right? And so it's very easy here to see that nicotine is that substance that we are being, or that our students are referred to our specialists for the most often. And then it goes on to cannabis, alcohol, vaping, and opioids. The substance that is most concerning right now, it's certainly not the substance that students are using most often, but it is the most concerning substance is going to be opioids, heroin, fentanyl, things of that nature. Unfortunately, we have had student overdoses. There have been stories in the news even of students who have passed away across the the DMV area, and it's very concerning because it only takes a very, very small amount of fentanyl or heroin or those type of substances, opioids, to really do damage and potentially even have a fatal incident. And so that is the substance that is garnering the majority of the attention, education, prevention, and education right now, because it can be fatal.
Thank you. I want to direct my first question to Blaise, Carland, Megan, Marshall, and Jenny Sexton. What is the impact of substance abuse by teens? Are there specific groups of students who are more likely to struggle with substance abuse? And specifically, if you can comment on any specific issues unique to foster, adoptive, and kinship families. We welcome that, of course. Who wants to take it first?
I can start off. I believe that adolescents are impacted. Substances are being used. Certainly in their brain development is greatly impacted because, as you know, an adolescent's brain is still developing. So anytime you add any kind of substance, that can actually change the way that that brain develops. We also see great impacts in the sort of social emotional development of our teens who use substances. Oftentimes that sort of delays their overall development. So they may become a little more immature than other students. It also greatly impacts relationships in their lives in terms of family and friends, and their mental health is of great concern as well. Of course, a student who suffers with any kind of mental health concerns are at greater risk of using substances, but those who maybe didn't have a mental health concern initially tend to develop some symptoms potentially as a result of the substance use.
And I can just piggyback a little bit onto what Megan is saying. From Arlington's perspective, we certainly see all of those same type of impacts with our students. One thing that we've done this year to help intensify the services that we're offering is we've expanded our interventions to 4th and 5th grade in an effort to be able to support the younger growing and developing brain and help get the information to our students at a younger age in an effort to be able to prepare them for middle and high school and the peer pressure, refusal skills, those types of challenges they may face as they continue to grow and develop into adolescence.
And to build on what they both said, you know, when you were talking about, you know, populations that could be at higher risk, I would like to look at it maybe more at what folks have risk factors, as we call them, what puts somebody more at risk for developing an addiction. And as spoken about before, there can certainly be mental health issues. Often folks will turn to drugs or alcohol to self-medicate. You could also look at the genetic component as well, their environment, you know, a whole variety of things. And I think a big piece of that as well, kind of referring to, you know, some of the population that Form Families is working with, is just folks in transition. In any sort of transition, somebody is more vulnerable. And, you know, because of family disruption, divorce, loss, moving, whatever you want to call it, or a realization of a new diagnosis, that's when people can be most vulnerable.
That's a really good point in transition. Transition also includes from high school into college and other things like that. So that's a great point right there.
Thank you all. So next, we're going to do a bit of a round robin with each of the school divisions. And if you could speak to, and I'll just call on you, we'll go in alphabetical order. I'll call on you so you can, everybody gets to speak. And what we really want to hear a little bit about is what personnel you have available to address substance abuse issues. And does the school division, do you have dedicated personnel? And how do people access those personnel? So let's start with Victor and Ruthy from Alexandria City Schools.
So I'll let Ruthy speak to her specific role and the folks that she works with on a daily basis and stuff. But I think it's important to note that the folks that I work with are the counselors, social workers, psychologists, and nurses who are in schools every day, able to support students, in addition to obviously the classroom teacher and administrators. And then when we get to the more folks designated to do that work, that leans into more of what Ruthy does. So I'll let Ruthy respond to that.
Hi, thank you. So currently there are 3 of us in the substance abuse specialists. We have myself and 2 other teammates and also an intern from university nearby. And so the 4 of us work collaboratively with the student support team and throughout the school division.
Thank you. Sounds like you have a strong team there. Jenny, can you tell us about Arlington?
Sure. So there's 6 substance abuse counselors on our team with Arlington, and in some capacity, every school in Arlington is supported by a substance abuse counselor. So much like that's already been said, we work directly with our school teams, our student support teams, to ensure that all of our students are getting the necessary whole child support, as well as our families. We also work with the community to ensure that the messaging that we are delivering within our schools is also going out consistently to our community members, which we feel is very important, that again, we're focusing on the student, the family, the staff, really a whole global perspective in Arlington.
Thank you. And it sounds like you invest some time into that two-way communication as well.
Absolutely.
All right, Stefan, back to you about Fairfax County.
Sure. So Fairfax County also has substance abuse prevention specialists. They are physically based in each one of our high schools. They support the alcohol, other drug prevention, intervention, and education needs, not just of that high school, but also the feeder elementary and middle schools. And they do this through a 3-tier approach. The first tier is any type of work that has the ability to reach the entire school community. So think of a parent PTA presentation. You can also think of an assembly style educational seminar for the students. So our second tier would be working with those students who are at risk for substance use. So those would be the students who may violate our behavior code of conduct. So you may think of a student who may be found to be in possession of a beer on school grounds, right? But then it would also, at that tier 2 level, we're also working with those students who have not violated any school rules, but they're still at risk. So perhaps there's a parent who found some marijuana in their daughter's bedroom over the weekend, and the parent contacts the school and is looking for some support. Or a student who is vaping and they'd like to quit. And so that student comes on down and sets a meeting up with their specialists on their own. And then at the tier 3 level, this is where we're very lucky that we're able to have partnerships with various community agencies. At that tier 3 level, if we do have students who have needs that go beyond what we can meet in the schools, we're able to expedite the referral and the enrollment for that student into our community services board's various treatment options.
Thank you. So a very comprehensive approach. Rebecca, you could share about Falls Church.
Yes, thank you so much. We're a much smaller school division, and each of our schools has a special services team that's assigned to each school, which includes a school psychologist, our counseling staff. We also have a social worker assigned to each school, as well as a behavior specialist. But in terms of the other staff that we have available, I think I want to also add on, I don't think it's been mentioned yet, but our health and PE teachers, those, the Virginia standards of learning that cover a lot of the substance abuse work and education and information that's given to students is covered by those standards, which is taught by our health teachers and our PE teachers, across the division. And then we also come at it from a prevention, education, intervention piece. And that's where then our social workers and our school counselors and our psychologists would step in.
Thank you, Rebecca. And thanks for highlighting the PE teachers and the health instructors, because that is a critical component in the partnership. And so you may be small, but it sounds like you have very comprehensive. So thank you.
We are small but mighty.
Okay, we're back to Blaise and Megan for Loudoun County.
I'll start. Our system is very similar to Fairfax County. We have 18 dedicated staff for substance abuse prevention. Our title is Student Assistant Specialist. We're assigned to the high school and the schools that feed into them. Our responsibilities, again, address the tier system that Stefan had mentioned, where we're doing community work such as this. We're also speaking to the general schools population with an emphasis on how drugs and alcohol can impact development. We also work with the folks that have violated the school's policy on drug and alcohol, and then also, the individual opportunities to work with kiddos that are struggling, or maybe we can get there in a preventive measure as opposed to a responsive measure. And Megan, do you want to speak to the UMHT concept?
Absolutely. Thank you. Each of our schools have what we call a unified mental health team, which is just a team of folks that include our school counselors, our social workers, our psychologists, our nurses, our student assistant specialists, and we just all work together, not only to support individual students, but to support the mental health and well-being of each of our schools as a whole. We also, as student assistant specialists, we provide presentations to our school staff as well, just to make sure that they have that most up-to-date information about substance abuse trends and what to look for. Because we often work very closely with our school staff in terms of if a student might be in trouble or could be using substances to help us identify those students in need.
Thank you. I think, again, speaking to all the partners and working together and how important it is that every member of school staff may be the one to identify a child who needs support or a port of entry for a family member or a student. All right, Prince William, not to be forgotten. Did Mallory make it? Okay, Julie, tell us what's going on in Prince William.
Yes, I can certainly speak to this, and it echoes many of the comments so far as your unified mental health or student support team members. We have our wonderful school counselors, social workers, psychologists, and nurses in each of the buildings. We do have Mallory McKnight, who is our substance abuse prevention specialist. And then additionally, we receive support from the county through our New Horizons program, and each of the secondary schools does have a counselor through that program.
Great, thank you. I'm just delighted to hear about all the partnerships and again, the comprehensive approach. That's really what it takes, and building within that tiered approach so that it can go from that universal level to a more indicated level.
So I want to follow up a little bit on the what happens. And we heard a little bit from FCPS and a little bit more from Loudoun, but let's start with Alexandria, with Victor and Ruthy. Should a student be caught with substances? What happens? What if a youth is suspected of having a problem with substance use? Where does that information go? Can you talk about how Alexandria Public Schools, what's the process?
Actually, it's very similar to what Stefan said. It's almost as if we work together.
Go figure.
We do use a multi-tiered system of support in working with our students. And so I'm not going to say that when students do have a substance or are in possession of it, it is a violation of our student code of conduct and stuff. So there could be a suspension or some type of disciplinary action that takes place. But I think it's important to note that, if a child is suspended and they do come for like a disciplinary hearing and stuff, that's when we start looking at the different supports that we're going to start offering to the student. And so, as Stefan said, at our tier 2 level, they may be working directly with Ruthy or one of our substance abuse specialists. At our tier 3 level, they might be getting some support from within the community. And so I think it's important to note, though, that we don't have like a zero tolerance type policy, and that the goal of when a student is found to be in possession of a substance is not to exclude, but to support. And I think that's really key. And I think that's what all of us try to do on some different level and stuff. And so, Ruthy, I don't know if you want to take the second part of the question. And I'm only saying that because I forgot what the second part of the question was.
Sure. So we work really closely with our families. So when we do get a referral from our student support team, we make contact with the family. We include them in any planning. We like to communicate with them to see what their needs are, what is their awareness of their child experimenting or using substances. But we also have really great relationships in the community. So we often times find that families come forward. So they may not necessarily have been caught at the school, but families may have found objects or pictures or something related to their child's social media page that they'll come forward to the SST teams and say, hey, I'm concerned about my child. What should I do? Where should I go? And so those conversations are had at the school level as well. So we also get referrals, not just from a disciplinary standpoint, but sometimes from voluntary family members as well.
And having those resources and knowing about the resources within the school's oftentimes the first stop. So, having the partnerships outside of the school as well that you're all mentioning, you know, it's helpful for the families, for the community to know you can be that first stop for them.
And also just to highlight that non-punitive, that although there may
Absolutely.
be some consequences, but the goal again is to get the child involved and the family involved in whatever services they need. So we know that adolescents with disabilities are at risk for substance abuse as well as mental health issues, but can you speak to, I'm going to ask Jenny and Julie to speak to what your system, your district system has in place to address the unique needs of children with disabilities.
I don't know who you want to go first, but I'm happy to share a little bit about Prince William. This is a really good and also a complicated question, of course, because it depends on the individual needs of the student. So in our division, I would say it's really about a partnership with those mental health professionals and the professionals at the school-based level that every school system in their introduction of services there mentioned. If you have a student who does have an IEP, we would encourage our families to ask the team to convene, and knowing then that you have that cadre of experts around the table who have the knowledge base of what the disability is and the specific resulting needs. You also have people at that table who can make connections, whether it's to another tier 3 support in the school system or an agency that could provide additional services in your city or county. So I think that what I would encourage any family of a student with a disability is certainly to be familiar with the resources in the school and utilize the protections that you have with your student as a disability and that IEP team to seek resources and additional assistance.
And ours in Arlington is very similar. We do the tiered interventions and the supports for our students, and we really work to meet the students where they're at with their specific individualized need and assure we're getting them connected to the necessary resources during the school day and externally outside of the school day. So just ensuring that those supports and tiered level interventions are in place to ensure our students' success. At the end of the day, we want them to achieve their academic success without these hindrances. So we work diligently to ensure that we eliminate those hindrances or work again to meet them where they're at to minimize any hindrances to their educational process.
Thank you. And really speaking to how important that IEP process is and the team around the table. I'm hearing that over and over again is how important the team is, building those connections, working together, that holistic approach. So thank you.
So I'd like to direct the next topic, something that we talk about quite a bit, the connection between mental health issues and substance use. We talk about co-occurring disorders. Do you see, I'm going to direct this to Rebecca and Stefan. Have you seen an increase in use paralleling the increase in adolescent mental health concerns? Kind of a loaded topic there. That's a big one.
I'll take a stab at it. Yes, we are seeing an increase in substance use along with mental health support needs with our students, especially coming out of the pandemic, right? And in Fairfax, you know, we're lucky in the sense that our substance abuse prevention specialists they're part of the clinical team at our schools. So they meet regularly with school counselors, school social workers, school psychologists, as well as their administrators. And so for argument's sake, let's just say that a student comes and is working with one of our substance use specialists or substance prevention specialists, and during their work, you know, our specialists recognize that the student could benefit from some additional strategies that could be implemented by another team member. They do have that collaboration process in place. And so the specialists can, in conversation with families, as well as with those specialists, they can make a referral for that student, or if you will, make a warm handoff, right? Walk that student on over to see school social worker or a school psychologist. So we are aware of the needs of students, and you know, we work as hard as we can to meet those needs.
That warm handoff, so important, and to understand that that need is there.
Absolutely. I would add into that is the answer to that question is yes, absolutely. We've seen an increase for our kids, not only in terms of, you know, that mental health piece, but also substance abuse piece. And I think it's really important for us as practitioners and parents to recognize why that's occurring in order to be able to intervene. And so when you're looking at adolescents who have anxiety issues, who are experiencing depression, or, you know, have other mental health conditions, that they are seeking relief. And so sometimes that relief comes from you know, a substance. And it's often, you know, when your friend shows up with here's a pill that'll make you feel happy, you know, and that's often how it starts. And it's coming from, you know, it's coming from a friend. It's going to make me feel better. And in the short term, it does make them feel better. But for our adolescents, because of their brain development, they're impacted much more significantly. Abuse starts much, you know, happens on a more rapid scale with adolescents than it tends to do with adults because of where they are in their stage of brain development. So it's really important, you know, that we recognize that, you know, this, you know, and I think some folks call it, you know, the self-medicating behavior that we sometimes see, especially with our kids, you know. And then when you talk about teens, that, you know, one of the most prevalent, you know, mental health issues that our teens are experiencing, you know, like Stefan said, coming out of the pandemic, is anxiety. And so when we, you know, when you have, you know, severe anxiety or, you know, even just social anxiety, you know, a lot of the newer behaviors that we're tending to see with kids is that pre-gaming. So before I go to an event, whether it be a party with other kids or whether it be a football game or, you know, some other event on the school campus, you know, they're, you know, getting high in order to, you know, to relieve some of that anxiety that makes it easier for them to function in some of those environments, you know, which unfortunately, again, in the short term, they, you know, because, you know, again, adolescent brains seek immediate gratification. And that's what they want, is that immediate relief. And so they're not seeing the long-term piece. So I think that's one of the more concerning things that as adults we need to be aware of when we talk about mental health and substance abuse for teens.
I think you hit a huge point in saying it's our awareness and education as parents, that we understand the why behind it. It's not always let's experiment. It is taking away a pain or taking away some anxiety. You know, we've seen this for so long around self-harm. It's taking away some pain and adding in another pain. And now we're seeing it just blossom in horrible ways with substance abuse and taking away some anxiety, test taking, sports, all of these things, and what that can lead to with young people. So the education and understanding.
Okay, we're gonna switch our direction a little bit and focus on prevention programs. So this one's for Blaise, Megan, and Julie. If you can speak to your prevention program interventions within your system and which ones obviously are in place to educate. I know you've mentioned some of these briefly, but kind of speak to educating students, parents, teachers, and the community. And I also am curious to find out about peer support programs and what role that plays.
I can start if that's okay. At Loudoun County Public Schools, we provide prevention on what we call a tier 1 level, meaning to all students, and we do it through grade levels. So in middle school specifically, we provide prevention presentations through health and PE for all of our 6th graders and our 8th graders. And then also in high school, we do for our 10th graders. So all of those grade level students receive that information. But as our program has been growing over the last few years, and there's more of us student assistant specialists out there, we're able to spend more time in our high schools, we're able to kind of see what the specific needs of each high school is, because each high school is very different, as well as the middle schools. Although it's the same county, there's always unique challenges in each specific school. So we can kind of tailor our programs based on the needs of our specific students. And create new prevention programs if it's needed or warranted for the school. And then one piece of intervention, then I'll pass the torch over to Blaise. Whenever we do have a student who is found to be in violation of our alcohol or drug policy, meaning they come to school under the influence of drugs or alcohol or in possession of them, we have a substance use education program that we provide to those students. We also reach out to the families prior to that and after as well. And we really are able to not only educate the student individually, but also assess their needs. And if they do need any further supports outside of what we can provide in school, we make recommendations and assist families in seeking those services outside of school.
I think just to briefly add on to what Megan was saying, I think a large part of what our job is building relationships, you know, either through our presentations or through interacting with the folks that have violated the school's policy. One of the shifts that have occurred in Loudoun County with the drug and alcohol policy has been that it used to be suspensions. They would be out of school, but that has shifted where now when a student does get caught with alcohol, drugs, or under the influence of those, then it's actually an in-school suspension. So they're in the school, they're not, you know, perhaps at home, maybe without, you know, parental support or observation. We're able to connect with the students and work with them while they're still in a relatively safe environment. I think, again, one of the beauty things about having more staff is that we can respond to the needs of our immediate community and respond rather quickly. I know that Stefan had mentioned fentanyl recently, and that's something that we've begun to address. And again, depending on the school's need, the questions, concerns that the community has, we can respond to it rather quickly.
I'll just add on to that. You know, again, there's a lot of similarities, which I think is a good thing across your school divisions in the area, that you are receiving a high level of service regardless of what school system you're attending. We, again, as well, within our multi-tiered system of support, tier 1 is our prevention, like people have said. So how is that built into the access that all students have? Health and PE lessons were referenced. I know in Prince William, there was a concerted effort a number of years ago to develop elementary lessons developmentally appropriate on use of medication and good decision making and things along those lines delivered by our counselors. When we talk about prevention with families, I think it's raising awareness, having offerings through our Family and Community Engagement Center, Family Engagement Nights. In fact, Mallory and I just met with our police department, a number of our reps yesterday, to talk about how can we partner, how can we be proactive. And that was one of the main things that the police were sharing about how do we raise the knowledge of our community on symptoms and not assuming that this could never happen to my child. So it is having that conversation. It's sharing resources with our families and our staff members as well. So we do monthly Revive training that our substance abuse prevention specialist leads. And a big part of that, of course, is recognizing symptoms, what to do when you have concerns, as well as the Narcan aspect to it. So it's also, and I think Dr. Martin's the one who mentioned, you know, things being restorative in nature and building that community in your school so that a student can seek out assistance for a fellow friend if they're having a need, and not be fearful of getting the student in trouble, but getting them the service that they need. So those are different ways within the community. As I said, that family and community engagement for our parents it all comes back to building a trusting environment, safe environment where students can access services in a school. And then the regular professional development responding to the needs of our general education teachers who are not substance abuse specialists and need to be kept up to date on the trends and understand what resources are available to them as professionals in the schools. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a lot going on all the time. But again, sort of this universal theme I'm hearing is the relationships all the way with the students, with the staff, with the community, and building on that so that we can do a protective safety net. So thank you all.
I did want to just welcome, I'm pretty sure Mallory McKnight from Prince William just was able to join us.
Oh, there she is. Hi, Mallory. Thank you for
Hi.
joining us.
Yes, sorry for the delay.
Well, welcome.
Thank you.
I want to go to our next question, which I'm going to ask Victor and Ruthy and Rebecca to jump in on. We've talked a lot about collaboration. We've talked a lot about bringing in the community and going outside of the schools, which is so important. It's something we all feel within Northern Virginia Family Network to be incredibly important in our work. Can you talk about how collaboration with outside community efforts, how are your schools and your school districts working with other partners, including your CSBs? Different schools and districts approaches to those CSBs, because I think we need to be able to utilize them as much as possible in our work.
I'll go first on this one. As far as our community resources, we do take, advantage of all the amazing resources that the RCSB can provide, to our school division. We're part of the Fairfax Falls Church Community Services Board, so we're able to access those resources. Some of the ones that we've brought in that have been incredibly helpful to us, they were able to come in and help us do youth mental health first aid training. We were able to bring in some social skills programs for even at the preschool level, we're seeing, there's lessons in there about, those, protective factors that even our very, very youngest, students need to know is, what are the things that you don't touch and what is medication, and recognizing that so that they can be safe. And then we also work really closely with them, again, for the, Revive training and that, that we're bringing into our school division. We also, one of the most important things that they do for us is provide the we're able to refer our families to them for services, for assessments, for treatment. So they're an incredibly valuable partner. Another partnership that I would like to highlight, is the Fairfax County Health Department. They've been amazing partners with us, not just through the pandemic. I think that strengthened our relationship with that group, but also as we've taken on what is it, the impact of opioids on our community, and what does that look like in a school system. So those are probably our two strongest community relationships that we have in terms of partnerships from other agencies.
Before I go to the next panelist, if people watching are not familiar with CSBs and the Community Service Board, Kelly just dropped a link in the chat to what a Community Service Board is and how it's defined by the the Commonwealth of Virginia. We have wonderful programs throughout the Commonwealth in each of our counties. We share in Falls Church and Fairfax. I'm in Fairfax County. So if you're not familiar with these services and how they help us navigate through disability and mental health services, the public services provided, check out that link below so you understand what we talk about when we say CSBs. Okay, Victor or Rebecca, and/or? I'm sorry, Victor or Ruthy. I apologize, Rebecca.
So a lot of what Rebecca said is exactly some of the stuff that we're doing in Alexandria. And I think it's important to note that Alexandria, the city, is very resource rich. I would say, I think right now, in terms of the use with our CSB, I want to say that we have 1 to 2 CSB members providing individual supports in all of our secondary schools. A little bit different than what we might do from a central office type of view, in that they're able to give some more individualized support to students, which is really, really important. But I think, it's also important to note we have a really good working relationship with this opioid work group committee, who's been able to actually provide us with some additional training around like Narcan and things, and also providing us with actual Narcan. And I know that I don't want to steal like Ruthy's thunder on this and stuff, but because of some of that partnership, Ruthy and some of the folks that she directly works with have been able to get into various schools to train people and get them to understand the significance of this crisis that we're dealing with. And when they go, it's almost as if people's eyes turn into saucers, because that they just don't know how significant this issue is and stuff. And so, but a lot of that stems from our partnerships that we do have with some of the community agencies here. Ruthy, I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to add to that.
Yes, thank you. So other relationships that we have in partnership, we have the FACE program, Family and Community Engagement. And we also have SAPCA, which is City of Alexandria Substance Abuse Prevention Coalition. So we work very closely with them. They come out and do assemblies. We can do parent education and additional support and information for our student body and our parents that we support as well. So we have SAPCA. We also have a DEA liaison for the local DMV area that can also provide some additional education and support for our community as well.
I'd also add too that we have done some work with our court services unit and some of the services that they provide as well. And so just another partner that we work with.
So I think as I'm hearing everybody, I'm recognizing how broad the scope is. Everybody's touched by this in every system, and you all have quite a job keeping those systems operating together. But it sounds like every jurisdiction is really doing just a fabulous job. So thanks for all the information. We are going to turn it over to Kelly, and she is going to facilitate all the questions we got in our chat. If not all of them, right, Kelly? We're not.
I'm going to try. We have quite a wonderful response on questions, and we really appreciate it. You can keep them coming. We will try to answer as many as we can. And they're very widely focused. So we're going to just sort of jump around. So get ready, buckle up, because we have an array of topics. First of all, there's some questions about fentanyl. So since I can see you on screen, if you're willing to answer this, just as we go through the evening, if you can just give a little hand. So not everyone needs to answer every question. If someone could talk a little bit about the fentanyl crisis, the opioid misuse, and also specific question about what is fentanyl typically mixed with. So I think there's some real interest in getting a little bit more facts on that topic. Who would like to address that one? Thank you, Jenny.
Sure. Being with Arlington County Public Schools, we recently experienced a tragedy, so that really brought fentanyl to the forefront for our community and for our staff and our students. So we've been providing a good amount of education on this substance recently to ensure everyone has a good knowledge and understanding of the substance. So what we're seeing specifically in Arlington County is the counterfeit pills, which typically come from illicitly manufactured fentanyl, which is created in clandestine labs in places like Mexico and China, and mixed with a variety of different chemicals to include heroin. It can have cocaine, meth, other chemicals in it, and then they press them via a pill press into the counterfeit pill. So for interest's sake, these pill presses can press up to 15,000 pills in an hour. And so what we know, our adolescents are actually using social media. They use emojis to go online to different social media platforms and order these counterfeit pills or obtain these counterfeit pills, which are typically coming in at the borders. So what we know is with the illicitly manufactured fentanyl, it's 2 to 3 micrograms. So very, very small amounts that can make it very deadly. And unless someone has access to fentanyl test strips, which are pretty hard to come by these days, given what's happening within our communities, they don't really know that the pill that they're ingesting, whether or not it has the illicitly manufactured fentanyl in it, or it has other substances such as heroin. There's other things such as gray death, which is another variant of the fentanyl, another analog. So we're seeing multiple different analogs and constant recreations of different analogs associated with fentanyl being put into these pills. So it's an ever-changing recipe, shall I say, that's going into these counterfeit pills that we're now seeing come into our communities.
Thank you, Jenny. Anyone else want to answer or address fentanyl specifically?
Just a smidge more. What fentanyl is, it's an opiate, originally created as anesthesia. In its purest form, 2 milligrams can cause an overdose and death. And to just build on what Jenny was saying, that often the folks that are taking these drugs that have fentanyl laced in it, they're not seeking out fentanyl. They're looking for some Percocets they can get cheaper online or somewhere else. And they have decided that 2 Percocets will achieve the high that I'm looking for. But instead, they're taking a pill that's laced with fentanyl, which can be 50 to 100 times stronger. And what they think they're taking is not what they're ingesting. And that's what leads to these overdoses and the tragedies that can happen with an overdose. So I think that's all I want to say about that.
Thank you. Stefan, I'm just going to give you a little heads up that the next question is going to be, I've had some questions about your data slides. So I'm going to put those up for the next question. So just prepping you that's coming your way. There are also, so for anyone who's willing to respond, have been a number of questions about Narcan. Is the level of Narcan training in schools sufficient in your opinion and experience? Are there Narcan supplies? What about Revive training? There was a specific question about FCPS. Apparently this questioner knows that it has been shared that there is Narcan in buildings, but in undisclosed locations, and a question about why having those the locations of that tool, why that would be undisclosed. So I'm going to let folks raise your hand on that one.
I can answer that one. So I can say that Arlington has over 1,000 staff that are trained to administer naloxone. We've got staff in elementary, middle, and high schools. In fact, our staff are required to know how to administer it. We have numerous doses in all of our elementary, middle, and high schools that are accessible. And we have about 500 pending staff that are waiting for their next doses as well. So we have an abundant amount of naloxone in all of our schools, and an abundant amount of staff that are trained to be able to administer naloxone in the event of an emergency.
And I can jump on that as well. In Fairfax County Public Schools, all of our schools are also stocked with Narcan, the brand name for naloxone. I believe one of the questions was asking where is the Narcan stocked? It's stocked in our AED cabinets as well as in our health, our clinic rooms. We do have select staff that are currently trained to administer Narcan. Those would be our substance abuse prevention specialists, our school-based administrators, right? So that would be your principals, assistant principals, your director of student services, and then our school-based safety and security staff, as well as our health room staff are also trained to administer naloxone.
I would just, from Falls Church, perspective, our secondary campus, has doses of Narcan. And it's important to have the 2 doses, that come in the kit available. We have those, in our AEDs. And then we are also in the process of working on getting, our administrators trained. In fact, I'm doing that session with them, I think, next week. But with our school health aides, our public health nurses are trained, as well as our school resource officers, because they are first responders. They all carry Narcan with them. But our goal is, we want to get as many folks trained. Our PTA is, has, and our health and wellness advisory committee have, really taken this on and have also brought in a Revive trainer. I think one of the concerns, and I don't want to speak for the other divisions, but, sometimes it is, because there is such a demand for Narcan, what we're starting to see is the supplies are becoming more limited. You'll see, waves where there'll be a large amount of supplies, but, and like the fentanyl strips, I think that's another, those are hard to come by. They're important, but they're hard to come by.
Mallory?
I can speak to what we have going on in Prince William County Schools. So in partnership with Prince William County Community Services, all of our schools are stocked with Narcan. All of our school nurses have been trained in Narcan administration, as well as our school resource officers. Right now, we are offering monthly Revive trainings for all staff that are interested in receiving training. I think that we have received very good feedback. We have gotten a lot of staff trained. We just started the monthly Narcan administration trainings for all staff last month. This past week, we had maybe about close to 50 of our staff trained. So this is something that is ongoing. We're looking to also offer this into the next school year to be able to get as many staff trained as we possibly can.
And Mallory, since you answered and mentioned Revive, I realized I asked a question about Revive and didn't define what it is. Can you just talk a little bit about that training?
Yeah, so Revive is the state's naloxone administration training.
Thank you. And I'll just comment that there are a number of comments about interest in seeing more people trained, all teachers trained. There was a question about having Narcan outside of bathrooms in the secondary schools. So I think just globally, I think there's a lot of concern by our attendees about continuing that trend of more access to Narcan and having more individuals trained. So I'm going to do, as I said, Stefan, and share the slides that you talked about. There were some questions initially because you started about the data. There were questions about whether there is that we know that younger and younger children are using, and do we have data on younger children? And I think there was a question about specifically data for the last 2 years. I'm assuming that means this slide where you don't have the most recent years listed.
So correct. So right. So you will notice that the data here is from 2015 through 2021. The data for the 2022 school year, the survey is given in November of every single year, right? So in November, we just recently administered, that would be 2022. That data will be ready in the fall or late summer of next school year. So we're looking at the summer coming up and or the fall for when that data will be released. If anyone would like to dig into more data from the Fairfax County Youth Survey, you can certainly Google the Fairfax County Youth Survey. And I believe it's going to be your first or your second link. It'll take you to the Fairfax County Youth Survey government page. And there's a variety of resources there that will assist people in understanding the data, reading through the data. Because if you just read the report, I'll be very honest with you, it's very, very formal and it's a very dry read. And so they do have PowerPoints and highlights and graphics and that type of thing to go along with it for folks who are interested. In terms of our younger students, there are 2 forms or two types of the survey. There's a survey for 8th, 10th, and 12th graders, and then there's also a survey for 6th graders. And the reason for that is because there are topics on the 8th, 10th, and 12th grade survey that we feel is just not appropriate for the 6th grade level. But if you would like the data from that 6th grade survey, again, please Google Fairfax County Youth Survey and you'll find the data for both levels, both secondary as well as elementary level.
Thank you, Stefan. I think there was a comment about the decline maybe being related to COVID. So I think those reports, dry as they are, do speculate on some of those potential explanations of the data drop. So thank you, Stefan. And I will just offer, we will likely not necessarily get every question answered to your satisfaction. So we invite anyone who's participating to send us an email. Nina, if you would chat into the box an email address for folks to ask any questions. We will do we promise to get them to all of our panelists. And if you give your contact information, perhaps the panelists will respond to you if they are able to shed some light on your specific question. But we're going to keep moving ahead because we do have some other questions. SROs. Or school resource officers. There was a question about the role of SROs, the function of SROs to keep drugs out of schools, and are there alternatives to SROs that you are using or have found to be successful? So I'm looking for hands. SROs. Thank you, Megan.
Absolutely. So we do have school resource officers in Loudoun County Public Schools, in all of our schools, actually. I think some of our elementary schools perhaps share, so it's not one dedicated per school, but we definitely work closely with them in terms of supporting students. And really, the school resource officers that I work with try very hard, I believe, to form relationships with students. So they can be someone that the students can talk to if they have questions about the law or, kind of just want to learn more about what can happen. So they try to keep that communication line open with students. So they're not just seen as an authority force, but kind of a friendly face that can be helpful. And I think there was a part 2 to the question. Was there? I forget if there was, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Alternatives to SROs?
Oh, alternatives. We also have safety and security folks in our schools who are plainclothed, who also kind of make sure that there's safety in our schools and can, support our school resource officers and our students in sort of a different way, because again, they're plainclothed, they're not law enforcement, they're school staff. So they work really hard to support our students as well.
Anyone else want to comment on SROs?
I think that just to add on, for me, SROs, I think at their optimal and ideal is they're doing community policing. They're out there. They're part of the school community. They're connecting and being viewed in a different light as opposed to a negative authoritarian figure. I can't speak to the specifics, but I do know that with each police force and the public school division, there's what they call a memo of understanding as to how they operate in the schools, how they conduct, investigations and the like. And I think that can make things a little bit more complicated, because I know sometimes there's frustration with parents saying, well, why don't they go in and arrest everybody? I think it's a little bit complex meshing law enforcement and school and also trying to make things a trusting and safe community. But I think that for me, working as Megan does with the security resource officers and the safety and security officers, the civilian version, it's all about relationships. And the ones that I see are most successful, the ones that have a good relationship, put themselves out in the hallway during the bell and just try to connect with the folks, as opposed to be somebody just in the back room that only shows up when things are not good.
Thank you, Blaise. A really good reminder about the huge power of positive relationships. Okay, a couple of more disability-oriented comments and questions. Our friends at Fairfax County SEPTA reminds us that the Youth Risk Behavior Survey does not disaggregate data by individual disability status, which is I think many of us would agree is a challenge and a missed opportunity. So we would hope that that will be something in the future we can see more of. But specifically regarding substance abuse related education, there was a question about whether any of your divisions and what are your divisions doing in terms of modifying instruction for students with disabilities in terms of substance abuse education. And I see a Blaise hand, so we'll start there.
We try to be as flexible as possible. When talking about working with the whole school population with what we call a tier 1, getting the message out, it can be a little bit more complex, but certainly upon request, we can work with students in a smaller environment, speak to them. We have a specific educational program at Loudoun County Public Schools called Insight, which we use with the students who have violated the school's policy for drug and alcohol. And based on their IEPs, based on where they're at as far as comprehending the issue, we tailor that educational piece to their needs and their comprehension, because it's just a waste of their time if we're not connecting with them and they're not understanding what we're trying to share. So we have that flexibility and certainly use it, as it seems necessary.
I would piggyback on that. We have amazing special education teachers who are really aware of the ways to present that information in the most developmentally appropriate way and are able to modify, those lessons and really hone in on what are the critical pieces that kids need to know, because there's the nice to know, but then there's the need to know. And, I would, say that, a lot of that work gets done by our special education teachers, and, in conjunction and collaboration with our health teachers, as well as our PE teachers and our curriculum specialists.
Anyone else want to comment on the students with disabilities and modification? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, in addition to what Blaise and Rebecca had said, in Fairfax, we follow the same model that they spoke to in regards to our tier 1. At that tier 2 level, when we are working with students who are at risk or those students that have violated our behavioral code of conduct, prior to beginning the work with the actual student in that face-to-face capacity, our specialist will review the student's record to determine if a student has an IEP or a 504, look to determine what accommodations are required and what needs does the student have, and then our specialists will work to meet that student's needs during the time that they're providing that intervention.
Great, thank you. I'm just going to share a comment, and we're not going to spend more time on it because I think you've addressed it, but they're back on the interest of having more availability in Narcan. There was some comment related to actually training students to also be administrators to be able to administer Narcan and encouraged to do that. So a peer approach. So I'm not necessarily going to invite comment, just sharing that was that surfaced. We do have a lot of comments about family supports and parents feeling overwhelmed, very concerned about the risk, not necessarily knowing who to go to. Also, I think you touched on some of this, but if you want to reinforce or expand on it, what kind of family education is available in your division, how I know many of you referenced that a family may find something either at home or know of a concern and come to the school. So if you can just maybe a few of you at least talk a little bit about that outreach to families, as well as what you have to offer families who may be in pretty significant levels of concern about their individual child. I'm looking for hands. Jenny, and then we'll go to Blaise and we'll go from there. So Jenny and then Blaise.
Sure. So we do PTA presentations in our schools. We also do community education series quarterly in conjunction with the courts. We do parent chats. We do community chats, especially recently on the topic of fentanyl. So we really work to utilize the resources we have available within our community to be able to get more information out to the community and to our parents. So we'll do things in person and virtual to ensure that parents are able to be present. We also ensure that we are targeting our EL population as well, because we do have, a large Spanish speaking population in Arlington, and that's important to ensure that all, parents are getting the opportunity for this important education.
I think in addition to what Jenny was saying, it's important to recognize that we have a team-based approach, and a lot of times substance abuse rarely exists in of itself. There's usually other stuff going on. And for me, what's so important is recognizing I am almost never the smartest guy in the room, but I know somebody who will be, and trying to, as a team, connect the services that can be the most supportive of this. The other thing I want to say is a little bit of a lament. We at Loudoun County, as I'm sure in all the other systems here, we offer parent coffees, parent teas, various educational programs, not just when there's a crisis, but as something that we do regularly. And sometimes the turnout isn't great. And my take on this is that it's usually the converted or the ones who have already been impacted by this are usually the audiences that show up for these presentations. And I'm so happy to have so many people here that are maybe curious or concerned, rather than being on the other side of it, having been impacted by it. So we have this out. We certainly videotape it. We put it out on our newsletters, as I'm sure all the other systems do. But as a personal lament, I don't want to speak for anyone else with this. We have these things out there, and I wish to goodness that more people would come.
So I see Stefan's hand, and I'm going to have him respond to that. And then I'm going to roll into the next, just because our time is getting a little close. There was actually a question that asked what you all are talking about, what wonderful things exist, but still problems persist. So are there other things that you sort of on your wish list of things that could be added to your arsenal of tools? What can families, what can nonprofit organizations, where can partnerships be developed, maybe that would be yet to happen? So Stefan, I'll let you answer the initial question. If you want to roll into that one, that'd be great.
Sure. So initially, what I would suggest to folks is please Google FCPS ATOD. So FCPS space ATOD, which stands for alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs. It'll take you to our alcohol and other drugs webpage, and there's a variety of videos and other information targeted at both parents and students. Everybody is very busy. We all have hectic schedules, and so that's why we put various videos up there so parents can just click on the video and receive the education at a time that best suits them. If I could have a perfect tool to address the concerns that we've spoken about tonight, it really is just folks educating themselves on these topics, and then taking that information back to their communities, taking it back to their families, taking it back to their loved ones, and just furthering these conversations. It's important that everybody understands that we are in the middle of an opioid crisis, but there are supports out there such as Revive. I'm a firm believer that everybody should know what Narcan and naloxone is. Everyone should know how to administer it. Everyone should know how to access a Revive training. So it's just the idea of continuing the conversation beyond, great panels and webinars like this.
Anybody else want to address that wish list, or what next steps, partnerships, particularly with nonprofits? Rebecca?
I would like to. I think if I had a wish list, it would be, a way that we can, looking at some more programs to help our kids. We do a lot with the, intervention piece. We do a lot with the education piece, but the reality is that when these kids are engaged in these behaviors, they're in somebody's basement, they're in a bathroom stall by themselves somewhere. It's, a group, I think I saw a story recently about, it was a farmhouse and there was, 6 or 7 kids in there, and they took, it was to take the, pill and have a party. And unfortunately, the pills that, they had were laced with fentanyl. And so there were 6 kids, isolated in this environment. And, several of them, were in overdose situations. So we have to help prepare our kids for how to handle this. And, and unfortunately, they're going to experience this at younger ages. So that would be, one of, my wishes, and that's something I'm also working with, our secondary head of campus and our education foundation. And we've had these conversations about, how can we look at what, how we're really arming our children when they're in that situation. And then the other piece is every parent needs to know what's going on their kid's phone. We're paying the bills for them, and we need to look at them because, I think someone mentioned it earlier, the emoji language that's out there that our adolescents are using. If you don't know what that is and you think, oh, it's just a, bunch of emojis, like we as adults use emojis, you are wrong. And, One Pill Can Kill through the DEA has some really great resources on there. And in fact, there's some really great, just really user-friendly charts that show you what those emojis look like, what they mean, and what you need to be aware of as a parent. Sorry, I was a little long-winded on that one.
That's great. And we are running low on time. I do want to ask, I think, what may be a really important question. There's lots of opportunity. Again, email Nina. Her email is in the chat. If you have follow-up questions, and we can definitely distribute it to the panel. But there was a question, I think, we can maybe wrap up on how do you measure the success of your intervention programs or your prevention programs? What data are you using? Where are you going to know what data sources? Are you talking to kids? Are you talking to families that you're using to measure your success and perhaps even do some additional planning in terms of needs, future needs? I'm going to look for hands. Mallory, thank you.
So in the past, when doing prevention education for students, we would do a lot of pre and post test evaluation to see, if there were any changes in what they've learned. Also, I jumped on late, so I'm not sure that if Julie mentioned our intervention program, Stop and Think, where it's pretty much an educational response for students that have substance use infractions. And so one of the things that we measure is like readiness to change. So in the beginning, they will say, where they are as far as their readiness to change, any behaviors related to substance use, and then measuring it again after, the lesson. Because I think there is a lot of misinformation, a lot of opportunities to learn more. And it's not to say that, oh, they took this, they got a lesson on it and everything changed, but it does kind of give us an idea of if the program that we're offering is even effective, whether it be prevention lessons or intervention.
Anyone else want to comment on the data that they're using or how they're guiding their needs assessment or future work? I'll have Megan be our last commenter. I didn't see any other immediate hands, and then we're going to wrap up.
Okay, and in Loudoun County, we utilize pre and post tests as well, but I just want to comment on how difficult it is to measure effectiveness with prevention programs, because a student may learn all this great information and still choose to utilize or try substances. But I think I try to look at it as, by providing this information to students, we're sort of like planting seeds, and they may not use that information right then and there. But if you've developed that relationship with a student, they'll know where to go when they have questions, if they need help, if problems do arise, they'll know where to go. So tough to capture that with data. But we also do reach out to families and to students to sort of assess their needs and get further information about what supports we can offer.
Fair enough, and a valid point. I think we have all shared in the inherent challenges of youth and temptation and sometimes limited long-range thinking about choices that we make. So appreciate that revisiting of the developmental realities that our teens cope with. I want to turn this over to Nina to just thank everybody. Before I do that, I'm going to again paste in the chat link to our evaluation. Northern Virginia Family Network really uses the information that we get in from these types of events to know what kind of program you're interested in. And again, if you have additional questions or comments that have not been addressed, Nina can be emailed and we will get those to the folks. And then when I post the recording, all of the links that these folks have shared with us in terms of county and school resources, we will include that in a document when with the recording, so folks can access that. So if you don't have ability to jot that down right now, don't worry, we will have that available. I thank everyone, and I'm going to let Rebecca say one quick sentence and then turn it over to Nina to close it down.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much for your expertise, your collaboration with each other. That came across so loud and clear that you all know each other and you know what each other's programs are, which is so important in our community because we live and work together so closely in such a large population area. And that really came across so clearly. Thank you for sharing your time with us tonight as a parent of 3 girls who have shocked me with what they've dealt with. It is so important that you are giving us your time and your information. So please reach out to NAMI Northern Virginia if you as adults need free support services for your mental health. We're here for you. And I'm going to turn it over to Nina.
Thank you. I just want to echo what both Kelly and Rebecca said to all our panelists and for our attendees. I had the fortunate experience of coordinating all this, and I must say every school system responded like almost immediately and with concern wanting to be part of this panel. I think substance abuse in teens is a very scary issue that we're all dealing with. We're all worried about our kids. And these days I'm a grandma, I'm worried about my grandkids. And what came across very, very sincerely and genuinely was the concern that all the school districts have, that they want to do prevention, intervention, provide that support, build those relationships in the community. And I think those are the only tools that are really going to make the difference in the long run, and that we let the youth of our communities know that we support them. So really, again, just very heartfelt thank you and your willingness to share information. And please, for attendees, panelists, don't hesitate to shoot me an email if there's any follow-up, any questions, comments, or concerns. And I'm going to encourage you again, please fill out the evaluation. And Kelly, any other announcements?
Yeah, we just really appreciate everyone, including our participants, for making this a priority. And I think at least one panelist mentioned the value of you helping to spread the word and being ambassadors, whether you're directly impacted at this moment or not, that you are part of an important community outreach function and to stem any future crises. So thank you. We're here for you at Northern Virginia Family Network, and have a really good night.
Thank you all.
thank you all panelists who are still with us. We really do value your time and participation. Really great questions. I think you collaborated really well in responding to them. So we didn't have to slap anybody's hand about time. So that was really
I was very nervous about that, but thank you so much for inviting us. We appreciate that.
Nina, I saved the chat so we can definitely get that list out of all of the links that were coming in like wildfire. So
Excellent, excellent. Thank
all
you.
right. And Rebecca,
My
as
Zoom
always.
skills are not quite that sophisticated.
All right. Take care, everyone. Good night.
Good night.
Yeah.